Welcome in, everyone. I hope you guys are doing great wherever you're watching from today. We have some big news out of Asia. China's war plan for the invasion of Taiwan, which could spark a massive conflict with the United States of America, has been leaked, and it comes directly from a U.S. ally that has leaked the information, received the information, and has made its way to the media. It's now being heavily reported on. It is wild. And it's actually something I've heard about, whispers about in the past, about how China plans to pull off its invasion of Taiwan, to retake Taiwan by force if necessary, which all signs point to very likely happening. So we're going to get into what the leaked intel is, what China's war plan is, what the United States could possibly do to stop it, and much more. Before we do, as always, please make sure to like and subscribe. Totally free, costs you nothing at all, and is a huge boost to the channel. Comment with your thoughts below. What do you think about China? How would you like to see China confronted? Should we defend Taiwan? Is it not our problem? Let me know in the comments below. Hit that notifications bell, all notifications turned on. You won't miss a thing. You'll have the best information on YouTube, and you'll be up to date on everything right here. Instagram, David_Hookstead, X, D Hookstead. That's where you can find me on social media. My DMs, as I always say, are wide open. So if you got any tips or anything you want me to know about, slide in there. Or if you just want to say hello, that's fine too. I'm very responsive. Now let's get into it. I have been for a long time here telling you all that China is the biggest threat the United States faces from a global rival perspective. What's happening in Europe between Russia and Ukraine, as bad as it is, as tragic as it is, doesn't impact your day-to-day life. What's happening in Israel, as bad as it is, whatever it might be, the Middle East, broader, Iran, just pick a country, doesn't matter. It can be bad, doesn't impact your day-to-day life. Those conflicts could get as bad as they possibly could. It's not really going to impact America because we're not really that entangled there. They don't have the ability to do anything to our supply chains, our economy, things of that nature. We really, all things considered, other than oil we need from Saudi Arabia, we don't have that much skin in the game in either of those two conflicts. That's just a fact of the matter statement. When it comes to China, not only are our economies heavily intertwined, China has been rapidly building up its military capabilities, expanding how many nukes it has, and is doing everything it can to try to confront the United States militarily. That is why the pivot to China idea that has been happening now for several years, no matter the president, whether it's Obama, Trump, Biden, Trump a second time, everyone has their eyes on China because China can actually cause major issues. What could be the catalyst for this unprecedented style conflict? That would be Taiwan. China has made it clear they want to take Taiwan. It's believed the window for China to take Taiwan either opens in late 2026, early 2027, and then goes about till 2030, 2031-ish. That's the window military experts believe when China might launch its invasion of Taiwan. The United States, while never openly stating it, is absolutely going to defend Taiwan. We need the chips that come from Taiwan. Our economy is dependent on it. And our allies in the region, Japan, South Korea, and Australia, are simply not, we cannot let them think they're going to fall next, right? So it's going to spark a massive war in the South China Sea. It's going to spark a massive war in Asia. It would be a disaster if it spiraled all the way out of control. Many people have wondered, I'm going to throw this on the screen. Many people have wondered, how is China going to transport its troops across the strait? I have heard for a long time that it is very possible China might use disguised commercial vessels in an attempt to get its troops to land on Taiwan. They think they can hide them better. It won't be so obvious of a military buildup because if our satellites see a bunch of Chinese warships grouping up, we're going to know something's coming, and we might just get ready to sink them all in the strait. If it's a bunch of commercial vessels, it might not raise the red flag as much. So Five Eyes is an intelligence sharing organization that includes the United States, the UK, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. some information has leaked. Classified information is leaked to the media. And it says that that's exactly what China's probably going to do. It says classified U intelligence warns of China's preparations for Taiwan invasion. It says a classified U.S. military intelligence report seen by the ABC, so that's the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, not the ABC we have here in America, says China is rapidly building up the country's commercial ferry fleet to prepare for an invasion of Taiwan. So literally what I just said. The report dates from earlier this year and was prepared by members of the Defense Intelligence Agency for the Pentagon, DIA. The U.S. intelligence says the large ocean-going vessels have been modified to carry tanks and partake in amphibious operations. So that means the vessels could come up to the shore, drop their front hatches, tanks would roll out. It'd be kind of like a D-Day-esque where the troops could hide behind the Chinese tanks as the Chinese tanks try to take and hold ground on the beaches, create a beachhead. While this is happening, you would likely see missile strikes launched from the mainland. You would see fighter jets that would take to the sky. And this is how you take the beach, though. ABC has seen the report on the condition that is not quoted directly in order to protect the source of information. In 2022 alone, some Chinese commercial ferries were monitored by Five Eyes, which is what I just said, in military exercises involving People's Liberation Army troops. The PLA, of course, is what the Chinese army is called. China is building more than 70 of these vessels by 2026. They'll have 70 of these capable of crossing the strait and going to Taiwan. Taiwan's government confirmed to the ABC that it viewed the vessels as part of China's expansionist intentions vis-a-vis Taiwan. We are also seeing increasing gray zone tactics to weaken Taiwan's democracy and society, such as cyber attacks. Douglas Hu, Taiwan's chief representative to Australia, told the ABC civilian vessels or other dual-use facilities in the maritime domain are part of China's strategy. So it says satellite intelligence of the ferries from earlier this year shows them being used alongside a series of new landing docks off China's coastline, as well as deploying amphibious forces in military exercises. The landing docks are a new vessel that allows the ferries to deploy cargo and people onto a beach. The U.S. Department of Defense intelligence report assessed the commercial ferries as possible military targets in a conflict scenario with China. This means ferries could be targeted and sunk by U.S. forces in the event of a Taiwan crisis, even with civilian crew on board. So that is, I'm going to pull this off the screen now. That is the leaked classified intelligence report leaked to the Australian Broadcasting Corporation that clearly shows in no uncertain terms that China is planning on using cargo ships, or I guess really you got to call them military ships, disguised as cargo ships to ferry across armor and troops in the hopes that we wouldn't be able to see the buildup right away because it wouldn't look like a military buildup with traditional military ships. It is important to note China now has the largest surface fleet of Navy power in the world, but it's important to say with that, their tech and their capabilities remain far behind the U.S. China knows this. China knows its naval vessels in a one-on-one fight with the U.S. Navy are going to get absolutely smoked. So what they're trying to do is overcome that by just going with a quantity over quality approach, similar to what we saw the Russians do in World War II. Yes, the United States might have much better ships, but if we get overwhelmed and if we run out of ammo, we can't hit all their ships, then their inferior ships might still be able to win the day. I'm not saying that's what would happen. I'm just saying that is what we think China believes could happen. So what do you do? How does the U.S. respond if this is what happens? My guess is, and of course, you can guarantee these war plans have already been developed, but of course, they're not going to be made available to the general public, is you would see the U.S. submarine fleet get into the strait or nearby the strait and torpedo as many of these cargo ships as they could. Problem with that is, according to reports, these modified cargo ships can withstand multiple torpedo strikes and still continue along from China to Taiwan. They can take a couple hits and they won't sink. They'll land crippled, but land nonetheless. I think what you also could see happen is you would see drone strikes on the vessels as they were coming across the strait. You could see fighter jets get in the sky, try to sink them that way. But the first thing they would try to do is sink as many of these ships as they possibly could. There are some estimates that say in the first 24 hours of a war against China, against a war against Taiwan, China could lose 100,000 men. Let me repeat that. Some estimates believe that if the U.S. goes hot with China in the Strait, our Navy versus theirs, China could lose 100,000 men in the first 24 hours and still possibly take ground in Taiwan. Taiwan's strategy is simple. They know they can't beat China in a one-on-one fight. They know that head-to-head, they have no chance. Taiwan's entire strategy is basically, we need to hold out for 10 to 14 days for U.S. and fellow regional allies to show up and support us. Can they hold out for 10 to 14 days? Well, that's really going to be dependent on how many of these ships the U.S. can sink in the opening phase. If we can't sink many, it's probably going to be very hard to hold out. If we can sink a lot of them, probably a very good chance Taiwan can hold out for major U.S. reinforcements, which would be aircraft carriers, which would be more battleships, stealth fighters. We would load up the area with cruise missiles and unleash. But then the U.S. runs into another problem. If we strike mainland China, China might start striking our bases in Japan, South Korea. They're certainly going to hit Guam, probably would hit Pearl Harbor. If we don't strike mainland China, if we don't hit their staging areas, it's probably likely that they would not hit our actual physical locations. They'd only fight on the water. Problem with that for us is the tyranny of distance. We can only fight with what we can bring, and we got to bring it thousands of miles. China can fight with everything it has and just stick it right there on the shore. It is a very complex and difficult situation. That is the reality of it. But now we have a classified leaked report that shows us exactly what China is planning, and we need to take it very, very, very seriously. We need to monitor these vessels at all times to make sure we are not shocked, and we need to make sure our weapon stockpiles are ready to rock and roll and topped off. We cannot get caught with our pants down against China. It is not Ukraine versus Russia. It is not Israel versus the Middle East. It is a war that would change the day-to-day life for people in America. That is a fact. But I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think of the situation? What do you think the U.S. should do to respond? Let me know in the comments below. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Totally free. Cost you guys absolutely nothing at all. Huge, 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 huge boost to the channel. Hit that bell. All notifications turn on. You won't miss a thing. And then right here, Instagram, David_Hookstead, X, Hookstead. That's where you can find me on social media. DMs are wide open. Send me any tips you got. Send me any information or just reach out and say hello. It's all good. I'll see you all next time.